Craig Lane, Alchemy YouTube channel. Community dinner. We're getting ready for spring cleanse. Today is March 6th, 5th? March 5th. Thank you. So we're going to start a cleanse on March 20th, and we do a seasonal cleanse, although I'm still finishing up the kidney cleanse, kind of. So we're going to focus on the liver. And in the circadian rhythm of the body, the spring is we're sort of hitting that early spring. The weather has been so, we have scheduled nice weather. We'll just say it softly. We have scheduled nice weather right now. And so in that, the vector, I didn't have the whiteboards out today. I don't think we need them, but the vector of force of spring energy, because James got me using the word frequencies more. And so to speak to what James asked for is, more frequencies and talking about more root level stuff. And what I call that actions of life. So what some people call frequencies, I call the actions of life. And that's where, because life is process. Life isn't a bunch of still images. So, and James, when would you like to talk about this? Well, there's sort of the spring cleanse. We need to have a scheduled event. So
I'm only joking.
But I'd love to have you talk about amplitude and what a frequency is, and I think that would be more your expertise. And a little next week.
I can do it next week. I'm out of town next week.
Okay, perfect. Love James to talk about next week a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'll introduce it, and then you can chime in and do your own expertise and whiteboards and whatnot.
Certainly.
Thank you, James. So this is the vector. The roots of plants are growing down very rapidly, and the shoots are growing up very rapidly. And one of my teachers, we would, people cut the ends of the carrot off, they lop off too much of the end. I had this teacher just freak out at me. So I was cutting too much of the end off. No, why are you doing that? All the cheese in there. I'm like, what? Cheese? What? And he goes, that's where the plant started. And you're cutting it off. You're cutting off all the cheese. So where the top of the carrot is there, where the dirt is, where it sprouts up, he says, get the corner of the knife and scrape out that dirt with the back corner of the knife. And save as much of that as you can. So don't lop it off. He said, because that's where the plant grew down and the plant grew up. It was the center of the chi.
You know what? Somebody told me there was a study that showed that most of the vitamin E in carrots is right there at the very top. That was years ago. Someone told me that.
Oh, wow.
So that's funny.
So in terms of frequency, that's where it's the most dense, because the plant is growing up and it's growing down. And that's one of the spring tips is, what are our plants? If you're living in, say, New England and the plants are sprouting, or do we have a lot of large plants or a lot of small plants right now?
Oh,
we have small young plants. So this is the time of year where you choose the small carrots versus the large carrots. You choose the small radishes versus the large radishes. You choose the small beets versus the large beets. Why? Because that's what life's doing right now. Everything's small and growing rapidly. In the summertime, then you choose the large colored greens. You choose the large greens, the large carrots, the large everything, because that's the big fire element time. And everything's large, right? The sun is large, the light's large. Everything's kind of peeking their head out right now. We're so wussy, wimpy here in California. Oh God, it's 50 degrees. Oh, and it's like we're poking our heads out of our covers when it's 50 degrees out. But imagine being in New England. Well, I guess New York City's not been that cold this year.
I saw a video of them surfing in the Great Lakes in the wintertime. The guys had wetsuits on, they had ice coming down their face.
Yep.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Trudging through snow to go to the surf.
Yeah, the wave would, that's actually a good addition. So tonight then we'll talk about a little bit about the spring energy, and we're going to talk about the system survey form, of which I will do a quick screen share so you guys on the recording can see this. So everybody here at the house has a hard copy of this, but if you're watching you can pause the recording and look at the system survey form here. And so there's groupings on this form, and you use it, people base their entire practice on using this form. So there's a bunch of groupings, and each of the groupings is an organ system. And so they've grouped symptoms by organ system. So if you see a lot of symptoms in group 1, then you know they're in a sympathetic dominant situation. If you see a lot of symptoms in group 2, it's parasympathetic dominant symptoms. Group 3 is blood sugar handling. So it's an easy way for a practitioner to zero in on the nutritional deficiencies of a person. The more symptoms, the more the problem. And this ties in with my system now. So my foundation 1 out of the 4 foundation system then, what is, let's see, I'm trying to tie into this form. So I'll quickly go through them, and then Monica doesn't get the answer because she already knows the answer, but maybe somebody else can try. So foundation 1 is the most important foundation because it's, so you have group 1, which is sympathetic dominant symptoms, group 2, parasympathetic, group 3 is blood sugar, group 4 is cardiovascular, blood vessels, group 5 is liver and gallbladder, group 6 is digestive system, group 7A is hyperthyroid symptoms, group 7B is low thyroid, hypothyroid symptoms. 7C and D are pituitary symptoms. I don't like to lump them hyper or hypopituitary because there's too few questions on the form. So if I was making this form, I would lump 7C and D together and just say pituitary symptoms. 7E is hyperadrenal, in other words, high cortisol, high adrenaline. 7F is low adrenals, adrenal fatigue. Group 8 is called, some teachers call it foundational nutrition. Others call it B vitamin deficiency syndrome. I'm gonna go back to that in a second. And then female only is generally female sex organs, ovaries, and ovaries and uterus, and male only is generally prostate, testicles. And so group 8 is one that I've had a lot of questions about. And so what exactly is B vitamin deficiency syndrome? And so we'll go back to, though, that's one of those primary things. So out of all those groupings, there would be 3 that would directly apply to foundation 1. And I guess you could try and answer, Monica. So my first foundation then is about, it's what sets everything else. So I call foundation 1 the chooser. Hint, hint. I call foundation 1 the chooser. How well are you choosing? So anybody want to try? No. Okay.
Well,
I didn't understand the question.
which of the groupings would affect our chooser and or blood sugar? Because the foundation 1 is also blood sugar, right? So the chooser is a psychological thing.
And how does the chooser interface with the body earth suit in terms of these groupings? Which grouping is the soul interfacing with to make the choice out of all these groupings?
Whoa.
1 and 2.
Is the form actually, the form doesn't tell you on the form what the symptoms are, what group the groupings
How
are.
about group 7?
No, we were all writing it though.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't write them down because you were going fast. and I was already 3 behind, so.
There's 2 other forms they're on the screenshot right now, but I'll go through for the audience and they can see these other
I'm
forms.
gonna say group 7A.
7A is hyperthyroid or high fast running thyroid. 7B is low thyroid.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, a whole lot of them could be, but
Right.
exactly what? I don't know that.
It's an unfair question because you don't really know, the perfect answer. So
I didn't know there was another side.
I like letting you guys struggle a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
So group 3 is blood sugar handling. And I've been talking about this one for a long time, that insulin is a primary hormone.
Yeah.
Your insulin determines your energy levels, your mood, and energy levels, your mood, and your other hormones. So, and that's directly related. Your insulin levels are directly related to your choices.
And 2.4 gigahertz.
Well, yeah. So then the other 2, the chooser part, so the blood sugar is the physiologic part. The chooser part is what I call the hormonal and nervous systems. So group 1 and 2 then would be the chooser part,
Yeah.
the sympathetic, and you'd want to see ideally no symptoms in either one of those. And generally you don't see a lot of symptoms in one or the other. You see symptoms in both.
No.
And you see that because it's just a general dysregulation of the nervous system. The more screwed up we get, it dysregulates. And the worst level of dysregulation is when your cortisol is low in the morning and high at night. That's the person that's dead in the morning and wired at night.
the other way
That's a
around.
severely disharmonized system. It's very severe.
What about the opposite of that?
Yeah, just going up
You
to-
want your cortisol high in the morning and low at night.
Right.
That's a good thing.
That's what you want. When you get a 24-hour cortisol test, you can do it through a saliva for $100. It's called the Adrenal Stress Index. And it measures your DHEA, your cortisol, your testosterone, and I think one of the estrogens. And so what you get with that is that you want to see like at 8 a.m. reading, the cortisol being the highest. And then it's like this, it just gradually goes down throughout the day. And then these people that are wired at night and tired in the morning, though, you'll see it's bottomed out in the morning and the curve will go up.
Is that a test that you were, or that you can do at a regular doctor?
I don't use the company Diagnostics, but I can reopen my account with them.
But I mean, is it one that a regular doctor can order too, that's
Yes.
covered by insurance?
Saliva testing is still not viewed very favorably by the medical system. I don't know that insurance would pay for it. They will pay for a blood test for it, but it's not nearly as accurate because the body makes the blood pure at the cost of everything else. So a saliva test is more at a tissue level. The blood is not. So a lot of the training I got 10, 15 years ago was based on saliva hormone testing, because blood testing, the body's not going to have an accurate reading in the blood.
What would that test be called?
It's ASI, Adrenal Stress Index, and Diagnostics. Diagnostics is the company that generally does it.
So what if you're wide awake in the morning and the same at night?
Then let's do the question and answer on that. That's actually great. Save that one, Drew. That's a good Q&A. So your foundation one is that then, and I'm going to just briefly go through this because I haven't gone through this in terms of this form. Then food breakdown, your ability to turn food into energy and new tissue is foundation 2. So where would that lie on this form? Do you remember the groupings?
Yeah, 6 is digestion.
6 is digestion, good. You could include 5 in there also because the liver is an important part of digestion.
Yeah.
And how is that an important part of digestion, the liver?
Bile.
Bile,
Yeah.
And
Detox.
cleaning everything and.
It's
Detoxing
processing
the
the
food.
fat soluble stuff.
detoxing fat soluble stuff.
Metabolic.
Sure, it rules the smooth spreading of qi. That's the old Chinese way of putting it. The liver rules the smooth spreading of qi. So if you see a woman with a dysregulated cycle, it's 26 days 1 month, 32 days the next, you can almost guess it's liver. It's not spreading the qi. And so you want to harmonize the liver. And one of my favorite herbs for that is a very common herb. It's sedge grass, Cyperus rotundus. It's a weed, grows all over this county. And it's the root of this plant,
And it's
sedge
good
grass.
for liver.
It's
but also-
Tierra. Tierra used to talk about it. He loved bupleurum. Tierra was a big bupleurum fan. But he said, it doesn't really grow that well around here. So he had some alternatives, and Cyperus rotundus was one of them. He spoke very highly of it. And that 25 years ago, that really keyed me in, like, okay,
And that's sedge grass.
that's just common sedge grass, bro. I got it all over the yard. And it's a water purifier. You're going to see more and more of these water purifiers. I'll be talking about them more and more because a lot of the nervous system purifiers are marshland water purifiers. Goticola and Bacopa specifically. Cattails, calamus is a cattail. It's a nervous system purifier, but it also purifies water and purifies the earth.
Well, that's what they use in that natural sewage system in Arcata, isn't it?
They use cattails and fungus and all kinds of stuff. And I was talking to Drew about the Arcata water treatment plant. They pump all the water to the top of this, I don't know, it's probably 1,000-foot mountain. And they pump all the water up in the city. And it's poop water, it's black water. And then it goes down through switchbacks down this 1,000-foot mountain. And there's cattails and gravel and mosses and funguses. And it just, as the water works its way down these switchbacks, they say, when I studied this 20 years ago, they claimed there was a spigot and you could drink the water at the bottom. But you could imagine how long it would take that molecule of water to make its way down that mountain. So, for the germaphobes out there, it was shit water at the top. But, you could argue that it might take that thing that molecule a year to get worked its way down the mountain.
Yeah, to go down the mountain.
Well, I'm talking about one molecule of water. I don't know.
That doesn't sound like Bill Gates's purification.
Yeah.
Water at all.
Oh, it's not. No, it's
Doesn't it
not.
filter through a sedimentation layer at some point?
Yeah, there's sediment and
Right.
gravel
Right.
and root structures and my favorite stuff, people picking on Caltrans a little bit earlier. So Caltrans has water going straight down the mountains.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, yeah.
It's the most stupid management of water ever. You want water going on switchbacks. They call them swales in permaculture. You dig a swale, you dig a berm, the water hits the berm and it slows down and backs up.
Right.
That's how you manage water properly down a mountain. You don't have it going straight down to wash all the topsoil away.
Oh, God.
It's just dumb. But, the white man's generally lost the 7 generations thing anyway. They're not thinking 7 generations out. They're thinking money now.
Welcome to the oligarchy.
Yeah, the corporate oligarchy posing as a government. All righty, moving along. So group 6. Now, group 8 is that interesting one. I'm going to go to that now. That's the B vitamin deficiency thing. So if you have a lot of symptoms in group 8, it means your foundations 1 and 2 aren't working. You're not choosing the right foods, and you're not digesting them well. And you'll see high symptoms in group 8. And so what is B vitamin deficiency syndrome? Anybody want to take a shot at what it might be?
Muscle weakness, lack of stamina.
You can't read the symptoms.
Very.
Poor diet.
Poor diet.
Berry, what they had the 3 Ds: dementia, diarrhea, and dermatitis. Those were the 3 Ds of berry. You know what berry means? I can't.
Oh.
That's
It's a-
Indian, right?
Dementia, dermatitis, and what?
Death.
Diarrhea, thank you.
Dementia, dermatitis, death.
Yeah.
So
Was that Hindu?
Swahili? Berry. I think it's African.
Oh, really?
Berry. You gotta find that one again. I mean, you can just
Look
Google
that
it,
up,
everybody.
look it up.
Just Google it. You find
Now you
it.
got my curiosity.
That's why I love talking and get everybody's minds going. So why would someone have B vitamin deficiency syndrome in today's world of excessive eating and all this supposed good food, the United States being top of the health charts?
Not absorbing anything that they.
Not absorbing. Okay.
They eat fake food.
They ate fake food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Excessive stress.
Yeah.
Nightshade.
Excessive stress. Nightshades block it. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, those darn nightshades.
Oh, got fake food and potatoes.
Slight digression. I was over at downtown at Pipeline today buying. I buy like one of these satchels of tobacco. It lasts me a whole year because I just put a little bit in with my pot. And so I was asking the young guy, "Hey, what do you think about the tobacco?" And so we were talking about different tobaccos, and I go, tobacco is a nightshade, like tomatoes. And he had no idea. I blew his mind. He's like, "What?" He's like, "Tobacco and tomatoes are related?" I'm like, "Yeah, they used to be called flying medicine, And he was like, I just love what look on people's faces. What are you talking about?
Tobacco's a deadly poison. You could take a cigarette and make a tea out of it and drink it, die.
You would die?
It would stop your heart, yeah.
Wow.
Toxic shit.
Really?
It's super toxic.
The nicotine, right? The nicotine's that toxic.
Yeah, it's super toxic.
Really.
That's so wild. You can.
I forgot
smoke
about
it,
that.
but you
Thanks.
can't-
Thanks.
Yeah, it's super
A tea.
toxic.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
And very addictive. And very
I know
addictive.
nothing.
Neither do I.
So there is an herb that I grow called lobelia, and it has an analog of nicotine called lobeline.
Really?
And what they do is you take the tea of this plant in, and you can smoke it too, and you get that nicotine analog, and it can help some people get off
Really?
because you're getting the analog. You're tricking your
Analog
body.
meaning- Analog meaning what? I don't know.
Chemically similar.
Chemically similar.
Chemically similar.
So you could substitute it.
I've read about this long and hard for 20 years, and I've had a few people with mixed results. But if the person's unwilling to deal with the psychology of why they have the strong habit, then you're not going to get very far. Right?
The
They have to be
question
willing to
is-
look at why.
The question is, what happened to you?
Yeah.
How much time do you have?
Stress.
Right. Yeah. How much time you got? Right.
More than most people are willing to talk, because it's really amazing. That is the key. If we can just get the smokers talking, that is the beautiful thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. My father was 2 packs a
Glad you
day,
said that.
Oh, my
and he
God.
never talked. Yeah. So I grew up with hay fever.
Did you grow up with secondhand smoke like
Oh yeah, 2 packs a day
In the house with him.
in the car, in the house. My mom was all over him, but he was just that addicted. Okay, moving along, B vitamins. So I think James kind of nailed it the most is B vitamins are naturally in high caloric foods to help your body make energy out of the calories. So when they like wheat flour, wheat's very high in B vitamins. Naturally, rice bran, wheat germ, they're all high in B vitamins. That's why people used to buy wheat germ. Remember at Staff of Life had that big old wheat germ bin, you know, back in the day, people go in the wheat germ bin, get their wheat germ,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and it's very high in Bs.
Put it on everything.
So it turns out like when you buy raw sugar cane, well, the raw sugar cane has a whole crap load of minerals in there to buffer the acidity,
That's right.
and potassium, another alkaline mineral, and B vitamins.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So
Molasses.
Yeah, but-
molasses, yeah. And
That's
so
why you can take it as an antidote.
Yeah.
Like sugar.
So what we've done is we've listened to these people over more than 100 years. Harvey Wiley, the last true head of the FDA, I talked about this earlier a little bit, 1906 passed the Pure Food and Drug Act because they were stripping all these vitamins out of flour and sugar and then adding back the synthetic ones and calling it similar. And, you know, people back then were like much sharper than we are now,
Oh my God.
much
We
sharper.
can all remember it.
They were much sharper than we are now. So Wiley, no one enforced the Pure Food and Drug Act because the big grain cartels, who are also the big bankers, put pressure on the government, and Wiley was taken out of office. And then a puppet was put in his place.
Okay.
And then he wrote a book in 1920 called Crimes Against the Food Law. The point of the Pure Food and Drug Act was everything with white flour and sugar was supposed to have a cancer-causing label on it in 1906. Because it does, it causes
Crimes
cancer.
against the Pure Food Act.
Crimes Against the Pure Food Act, Crimes Against the Food Law, sorry. Harvey Wiley, Crimes Against the Food Law was published in the early 20s, and it was never allowed in libraries and was burned and banned.
Wow.
He was, I mean, he's a hero. He's on Wikipedia and you can read about him. Harvey Wiley, he was the last true head of the FDA who really gave a fuck about the people.
Wow.
The FDA became the medical mafia after that's what they call
That's funny.
it. So Mr. Wiley, we'll call him a hero. And so when you take these refined foods with just carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, because remember, white flour is only 3 elements. It's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And they're all acid forming unstable elements. That's why the trace minerals are there to buffer the acidity. And so that's why we have B vitamin deficiency syndrome is the more empty calories you eat, the more you have to use your own B vitamins in your own body to metabolize that food. And you're more and more deficient, more and more under, and people get these B12 shots and they think, oh, I got so much energy. B12 has nothing to do with energy production, 0. It has more to do with the red blood cell than anything, which indirectly might, but B1, thiamine is your main energy B vitamin. Thiamine, B1 is. But remember, thiamine is very yang. You need the B4 fat soluble protector. That's only in whole foods. And Royal Lee isolated this from cow liver back in the 20s and the 30s, 40s.
So what does B12 shot actually do for you? Doesn't give you energy.
I think it's a drug-like stimulant effect, personally.
Wow.
So if you get a B12 shot, you're gonna get synthetic. Right?
You're definitely getting coal mining synthetic USP refined. Yeah.
With big red dye. Sometimes
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
someone just tried to give it to me. I was like,
The thing is that your gut flora is supposed to poop out B12. Your lactobacillus is supposed to eat your food and literally poop out B12 for you. I started studying this in the 90s. Dr. Natasha Natrev, who had the Trinity line of probiotics, they were like the pioneers in the 90s and the 80s. And they'd done some studies. They had taken cow milk and measured all the vitamins and minerals in it. And then they made that cow milk into yogurt. Same milk. Tons more protein, tons more B vitamins.
After you make it into yogurt.
After you make it into yogurt, which is bug poop.
Bug poop protein.
Bug poop, well, the bugs are also protein.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, maybe Bill Gates isn't so off track.
Right. So this is the reason why people, our ancestors would soak rice or soak grains and let them sour.
Ferment, yeah.
They would ferment them because then you have more protein. It's less carbohydrate and more protein because you have more bugs that have eaten the carbohydrate for you. And then your body's digesting the bugs and turning it into protein.
Oh. That forces some cows.
Right, exactly. We actually have two stomachs. I went over this a little bit a month or so ago, but we actually have an enzyme stomach at the top and then an acid stomach at the bottom. And Dr. Edward Howell used to refer to this quite a bit in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Edward Howell, he was the enzyme nutrition guy I talked about. So you have this raw food part of your stomach. If you don't eat raw food, then you're not going to get the benefit of all the enzymes that are generated. And that is your root of cancer. I've been farting around with, I'm taking 4 different enzymes right now. I got this reactive one, like this client that's reacting with the ulcerative colitis case. And so I haven't tried, I was going to give her the enzymes and wait a minute, I haven't tried them yet. I don't want to guinea pig anybody. So we did it simultaneously. And you know what? I haven't heard a word from her, which means we're good. And my aches and pains go away when I take extra enzymes. One of my assistants, Tara, she says when she takes the Zymex 2, her knee pain's gone. Now, why would someone's pain go away when they're taking enzymes? It would be, you wouldn't even make the connection, most people. So why?
Anti-inflammatory.
Why? Why is it anti-inflammatory?
They eat the protein that hangs around in my joints.
They what?
They digest the protein that hangs around in the joints.
That's very well put. Yeah, that's one. James is correct too.
Especially if you eat it on an empty stomach.
Right. That's the Wobenzyme, the Vitalzyme, those enzymes you take between meals. And I used to have an account with multi-level marketing with Vitalzyme years ago, and I got a couple of fibroid endometriosis cases out of pain by taking that product between meals. The main thing with that, the Wobenzyme and whatnot, or the Vitalzyme, was serrapeptase, the silkworm enzyme was in there. You can imagine how strong the silkworm enzyme would have to be to break down silk. Don't they do the silk with the hanging, the flying dancers? Don't they hang from silk?
Not really.
Yeah.
It's not really silk. Okay.
Cirque du Soleil.
It's just called.
No.
Probably pretty expensive. That would be silk, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
right. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what is it that makes it anti-inflammatory?
Okay, here we go. So your body has two kinds of enzymes, to overly generalize. There's digestive enzymes, and then there's metabolic enzymes that are used between meals to clean up waste. And if you're eating only cooked food, then you're using up your own stores of metabolic enzymes for digestion that are needed for waste cleanup.
Yeah.
And that's the simple answer.
So when you,
So my theory is, because I need to do an enema about every week to 2 weeks, is my theory is my body can't process my waste fast enough, and then it just builds up. And it's like if you got a guy behind a counter and more customers come in than he can process, well, the line's going to back up, and that line in our body is symptoms. So it's important that we stay ahead of the game. And so in today's world, I don't think that a lot of people go on these 30-day raw food diets, and their diabetes goes away, their problems go away, their connective tissue problem goes away, their pain goes away, because they're eating an enzyme-rich diet. And now their metabolic enzymes are freed up to process all the waste and inflammation between meals. I'm not a raw foodist, however, because a lot of people have trouble eating raw food, mainly because they choose the wrong raw foods and they don't frickin' chew anymore. Nobody chews anymore.
They don't ferment them.
My Vitamix.
Well, smoothie's great, but
Well, you don't get saliva when you do that. It bypasses your the first step of digestion.
you chew your liquids. You go,
Yeah. But most people
Yeah.
don't, especially with
because
straw.
the chewing is much more than masticating. It's the, start of all the enzymes and everything to break it down, so.
I got to digress too. Saliva, I have a handout from my macrobiotic teachers in 1996, and they had the 7 main reasons why you should chew well. I got to go find it because it's excellent. And one of them was, this guy blew my mind. I still haven't validated this entirely, but I think it's a great thing to look at, is he says the saliva provides your body with how to use the nutrition.
Wow.
So if you don't chew your food well, you have no markers on how to use the stuff going down. And I would tend to agree.
Yeah.
I tend to agree.
Provides your body how to what?
How to utilize the food going down. Like, hey, put this molecule of chicken over here. Put this piece of kale here. Turn this other thing over here into that.
To assimilate it in the proper place.
So one of the thoughts I've had, because every now and then I realized I didn't chew that last bite very well. So then I chew the next bite twice as much. And I figured that probably helps.
It does.
If you just fake the chewing at the end even, you know, it's still in your mouth. It's your body still knows it's what you just ate and everything. It's little things like that are sometimes nice to give yourself a break, like, oh yeah, I wolfed that part down. I can stop and make up for it.
So
That's one sec. That's there's a big piece with this is the worst thing in the world is I talk to people and they go, oh, well, I indulge in the chocolate or whatnot. And then they beat themselves up for having indulged or beat ourselves up for not having chewed. And the most important thing we do is pick ourselves up and just move on. You know, and it's really bad. I tell people, if you're going to have an indulgence, have the indulgence and enjoy it for God's sakes. Don't beat yourself up afterwards.
The guilt only makes it worse.
Okay, so the comment I was
Okay,
gonna make
James had a comment.
When Monica said, oh, if I don't chew my food consistently, I'll just chew it a lot at the end. So if we use the example of when you exhale 10 to the 23rd atoms. So that's a lot. So if you chew your food more every bite, you're helping the food along in your
More.
digestive tract.
Yeah.
That was my comment.
Yeah, well, it's definitely better to chew throughout. There's no doubt.
Of course.
But sometimes it feels like it still does something.
And this is back to the spiritual game. This is part of the spiritual game is, you know, oh, I fell asleep at the wheel and I ate those last 5 bites too fast. Oh, and then I woke up, you know, popped awake again. Oh, I'm on my 6th bite, but you know, pick myself up and I'm awake now. You know, and we can't, you know, Eckhart Tolle had a whole piece in The Power of Now about this. He actually made an argument in that book that if you're asleep at the wheel and you're mad at somebody and you commit a crime, you could plead insanity because you were asleep at the wheel. I thought that was an interesting argument for being awake versus asleep. But that's why you eat in silence. And a lot of the people I studied with 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago was go to a quiet room. I mean, I was regularly sent to the quiet room as a young man. You're too young, go shut up. And that quiet time allows you to have more presence with your chewing.
Totally.
Yeah, so the presence with the chewing is important. And that's part of, like, I tell people, like, you join my cleanse, right? And we're doing a cleanse on March 20th. Well, that's going to be a big piece of it. It's talking about chewing. Why? Because it costs you that much money to do it. $0. That's my big MO. Find stuff that's free and easy and effective. That's 25 years of research. So that's why I'm up here talking, because I found shit that works. The other one about chewing is really interesting. And as the acupuncturist will note, your stomach meridian starts right here. It's actually a point right on the orbit of the eye right here. Press down just below the pupil. That's stomach 1, I think. Yeah. And then it goes down to the cheek right here and then over. And see if you press right here, if you clench your cheeks, that's stomach 6.
Does it help to massage these after?
Yes. And so if you don't chew, my theory is your stomach meridian's right here on your jaw. So if you don't chew, then you're telling your body there's no food coming down. If you're chewing, you're activating the stomach meridian, which goes down to the feet. I call it the waterfall. It goes down over the nipples, over the front of the thigh, and then down ends on the 2nd toe. And that's what nausea is the stopping of that downward flow.
Yeah.
And vomiting is the reversal of the flow up and out. And so by chewing your food, one of the other 7 reasons is you're activating your stomach meridian, which is why you need to chew your liquids too. That's a Gandhi quote. Chew your liquids, drink your food.
Right.
Chew your liquids, drink your food. That's a Gandhi quote. Gandhi had some cool shit, but
Have you ever tried to use licorice sticks or other kinds of chewing sticks? Like there's these African chewing sticks.
there's a couple of there's a really common spice. The cumin seed is the word for causes salivation is sialagogue, SIALOGOGUE, sialagogue. There's a good word. SIALOGOGUE, sialagogue. Causes salivation. The yerba santa herb we had earlier, that's why I chose to do it. It had the bitters, but it had yerba santa is also a sialagon. So liquor stick, probably, you know, like sialagon, it's stirring up all this saliva. Let's see. I'm going to come back to the groupings. You want to hear about the groupings now, what they mean?
Sure.
Okay. I want to make sure you get your rest time though before I. I'm not poking at him today. So we're going to come back to B vitamin. That was group 8, B vitamin deficiency syndrome. So when you're looking at this form for yourself, a couple of generalities. The more symptoms, the more toxic we are. Now, why would I say that? The more symptoms you have, the more toxic you are. What's the rationale behind that statement? Anybody want to try? It's a pretty audacious thing to say.
That sounds kind of obvious.
Well, the more your body is
Wait,
trying to, the more your
Wanna talk-
body is trying to naturally rid itself of these toxins.
Through symptoms.
Right.
And to alert you,
So if you don't
take a
have
little care, please.
Or it's compensating.
You won't listen to this one, you listen to this one.
But why is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
not, why is it not common sense? The more symptoms, the more toxic.
Because we're brainwashed.
Oh.
So Michael Tira had a quote that I chewed on.
Yes.
I still think about it. Tira had a quote in his herbal course about toxins. And I have it in, I still think about it. Toxins, it's 3 words. Toxins are desires. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I studied that for so many years. Like, wow, that's so good. So zen. Toxins are desires. Wow.
Is the inverse true?
Desires are toxins.
Oh, that's universal.
Oh man, I hope that's not true. Because I got a lot of desires. You know, the best is when you're aware of your desires, and then I have what I call competing desires. You know, you have conflicting desires. Oh, it's horrible. Like I wanted to be a vegan, but I also wanted to be, you know, world-class surfer and athlete. Well, for me, they didn't go together. When I was a vegan, I lost my athleticism. I weighed 155 pounds for God's sakes, eating a lot of food. I couldn't keep weight on.
How much do you weigh now?
170, 180. 183 is my highest weight I've ever gotten to. And, you know, I could suppress my thyroid and gain weight, but that's not a good strategy. Okay, so let's talk about these relationships then. And we went over group 1 and 2 a little bit. And it also depends on, notice how there's different levels to the symptoms. There's a level 1, level 2, level 3. One way to objectify that is if you have a 1, a mild symptom might happen once a month. Occurs rarely is what they say on the form. A moderate symptom might be weekly. So an increase in frequency, you know, this frequency thing. And severe would be daily or occurring throughout the day and driving you bananas. So generally symptoms start with a low frequency. Oh yeah, Craig, my sneezing fit just happens a couple times a month. And there's no problem. And I go, keep an eye on it, client. Because if it increases to weekly, where it's only a few times a month, then you know that the trajectory of your symptom is getting worse. So we watch for an increase in frequency. So if you see a client with a lot of 3s on this form, you know that they have a lot of imbalance and compensation, as Cindy put it. Great. And if you see, the place you always start with this form is group 3. If you see a lot of group 3 symptoms, that's blood sugar handling. It means they're not choosing the food that's right for them. Or they have a severe, like I got a new client that she pretty much is choosing the food that's right for her, but her pancreas is incredibly inflamed. How do I know? Because I went right in there and palpated it. The head of the pancreas is accessible for us to palpate. It's part of my exam system. And I couldn't even get like this far in. Ow! It's like right here. And it was like poke, poke, poke. So then it's a 5 out of 5. And they've studied this, folks, for the last 60, 70, 80 years. And when you eat too much cooked food, your pancreas gets bigger. It swells and gets inflamed. Why do you think?
Because you have to make, because pancreas makes enzymes.
There you go. It's making enzymes and insulin too. So if you're using it a lot, it's going to need to get bigger, right? Just like people that don't nourish their heart well enough, their heart swells. Yeah, swollen heart's not a good thing. Not good. So if you see group 3, you start with that. If you don't see group 3, then the next one you generally want to go to is group 6, digestion, and group 1 and 2. Because if you see a lot of group 1 and 2 symptoms, and you know their nervous system's out, and you want to go to a person on areas you can interface easily. Blood sugar is easy to fix if you can get them to change. The nervous system can be easy to fix if you can get underneath their skin a little bit. Liver is easy too, because the liver basically handles a little bit of everything. So, you can always get at the liver, and you'll always know the liver's an issue if they're irritable, angry, because that's the emotion of the liver. Irritation, irritability. Also, overwhelm. Overwhelm affects the gallbladder more than anything. And when I say gallbladder, I mean the sides of the body. The gallbladder meridian goes down the sides of the body. So we're doing this liver cleanse, then each one of us will have a different sort of tendency, right? So if you're, and the spots that I noticed from doing shiatsu body work on people is women got it so good. This is but in this bone of the greater trochanter is gallbladder 30, right in there. And on the right side, women, this is where they get it. That's right hip, right in this area. I know from 25 years of doing body work, it's like, oh, they're the women, they're always, because they're overwhelmed. The feminine isn't set up for, I'm not talking the same women, I'm saying the feminine archetype is not set up well for planning, decisioning, financing. That's the masculine role. The feminine role is spontaneity. And so we have a lot of feminine women doing too many masculine roles, overwhelms their gallbladder meridian, and then it will present as temple headaches. The gallbladder meridian goes down over the shoulders, shoulder tension, hip tension, side of the leg tension, ankle problems, goes down the entire side of the body. And to further how amazing Chinese medicine is, I think you'll love this, James. You know when somebody says he had a lot of gall for doing that?
Yeah.
Guess where that came from?
Caesar conquering Gaul.
Came from a Chinese guy, apparently.
Oh.
Because of gallbladder. The gallbladder rules your decision making. Should I choose to go left or right? Because it's on the sides of the body. Isn't that freaking amazing? They tie in this little organ, gallbladder, with this all other, the way we live our lives. That is just amazing to me that somebody thousands of years ago tied all this stuff together. I mean, the breath group is too. The Ayurveda, the Vedics are too. I'm in that breath group with you guys. I got to finish chapter 2 today. And it's astounding to me. See, they're all pointing at the same phenomena. The Chinese were, the Indians were, the Greeks were. They're pointing at natural law phenomena. And they just change the verbiage and the words, but it's the same forces. There's not 50 zillion gods. There's not a Muhammad, a Jesus. There's one divine force that splits up into, the 10,000 things, the Taoists call it. The unnameable Tao becomes the eternal Tao. The eternal Tao cannot be named. That becomes the named Tao. That splits off into yin and yang. Then yin and yang becomes the 10,000 things, they say in Taoism. So we live gallbladders back to that duality, right? We choose to go left or right. So the higher place to be is when you're not choosing at all. There's no choice. You just know which way to go. That was my last conversation with Adyashanti. I asked him, I go, so when I'm stuck between choosing this or that, I go, it's already too late, isn't it? He goes, yep, that's exactly right. If you find yourself in a decision, you've missed the flow already. That's the best pointer I ever got. So rewind back to the point where you were not in indecision and find out what made you divide into this or that. Because we always generally know what to do if we're listening to our heart. We know which way to go in life. We get up in this thing, oh, I got to validate that choice, and that's not scientific. Oh, the study says that. And then we're in this rational world where we end up dead sometimes. And I so many good digressions. I'm starting to feel better too at a bad day, but So Suzuki Roshi, you know Suzuki Roshi, she founded Tassajara Zen Center, and he came over from Japan. Great book about this guy's life called Crooked Cucumber, written by one of his students. And the student had interviewed his wife, who apparently lived long past him. All of these great male teachers, their wives outlive them by far. These macrobiotic guys, it's really funny. And so the point of that why did he leave Japan? He left Japan right before World War II started. Suzuki Roshi did. Why did he leave Japan and come over here? You want to take a guess?
Freedom.
He was told he had a vision that he needed to bring macrobiotics to the West.
Nope. I have a story about the story's about not listening to your mind, but I'm digressing to why he left in the first place.
Asking why he left.
Yeah, why did he leave
He
Japan?
fell in love.
Nope.
His cucumber
He was
crooked.
kidnapped.
He left because of this statement that he knew from studying the Taoist system. There's a saying, the disordered society is full of loyal patriots.
Ah.
The disordered society
So timely.
is full of loyal patriots.
So he was looking for a new following because the Japanese are very focused.
He said the dogma was so bad in Japan. It's probably the way we are now. He just had to get out. He said no one was open-minded anymore. He couldn't really teach to anybody, but he thought that the West, the United States, would be more open to it. So he came over here. Because his own people were so brainwashed with patriotism. And I just love it because we're there, folks.
Yeah.
The
No,
disordered
the
society is
Japanese-
full of loyal patriots. That goes back like 3,000 years, that statement.
Yeah, wow.
Great pointer, folks.
So
So
the Japanese were just looking at the whole. They were all nails that were nailed down. The nail that stuck up, they hammered it down. So that's
Right.
why he left.
right.
Yeah.
It's happening now, right? If you stick up now, you're like, you get pinned. So here's the story. He's going to come over here, and World War II starting. It's in like 30, I don't
What's his
know.
name again?
Suzuki
He
Roshi.
wrote Crooked Cucumber.
His student wrote the book, Crooked Cucumber. I forgot the name of the student. I got the book somewhere, I can find it. So when he's coming over here, great read, James. It's a great read. Oh my God. So he's coming over, and he's on mainland China. He had to go over there for some reason, and he was trying to get back to Japan to get another boat over to the States. So he's at this point where he's at the coast, and he's either going to go left to the main dock where you can see the cruise ship over there, or he's going to go right where there's a beat up old pier and nothing to the right and a shambled road. His intuition kept saying, go right. And the moral of the story was don't follow the signs. So he went right. And he was walking. So he's walking. And as he's walking, he hears this sound of something blowing up. And the cruise ship had gotten bombed. So the cruise ship gets bombed. He's still walking. Like, I walk over this pier over here. And as soon as he gets to the pier, this fisherman pulls up. And he goes, hey, where are you going? He goes, oh, I'm going back over to Japan. So that was his ride back to Japan because he listened to his intuition. He didn't go to the left. He didn't die on the cruise ship. He didn't follow the signs. He followed his heart. Completely irrational decision, right? Everything in science says, go to the cruise ship, go over there. The road's paved, everything's pretty. But he went where his heart was telling him to go. And he made it to the States because of that. Don't follow the signs. Follow your heart.
He was brave and confident.
He was none of those, actually. He had he was not confident in his decision until he saw that boat blow up. Then he got confident.
Then he got confident.
But he was terribly questioning himself, like we all do. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just going to follow my heart, And he was a young man, but his teachers were, what was left of them were urging him, you got to get out of here because you're going to get wiped out because you're too much of a rebel. Okay, we're almost at 9. Oh, we are past 9. Okay, I got to wind this down here pretty soon. Group 4, if you see symptoms in group 4, which is cardiovascular, then that's more generally a chronic thing. Group 4, if you see symptoms in group 4, it's mostly more of a chronic issue. Why? Why? I'll give you a clue from anthroposophacy and alchemy. The top,
What is group 4, please?
I'm sorry?
It's cardiovascular.
Cardiovascular. Yep. So you have at the top of the being is sort of the air element, right? All the thoughts, the fifth chakra cliche is sound, and the sixth one's light, and the seventh one's pure consciousness. So they're kind of, they're not really rooted. And the fourth chakra is the heart and the sacred blood, and that's the bridge between spirit and matter. So the blood is the sacred vesicle. And if it's showing signs of imbalance, then everything else is fucked up, basically. That's the last system usually to go, because the body really values the blood being pure. It will sacrifice the bones. It will sacrifice the organs. It will. Your bones, that's what osteoporosis is, the sacrifice of the bones for an acidic diet. Your body's pulling alkaline calcium out of the bones and magnesium to buffer the acid blood. So, then generally, we went through the whole first side, except for 7A. So if you see a lot of groups 5 symptoms, which is liver, gallbladder, you can almost guarantee you're going to see 7A and 7B symptoms, which is thyroid. And I can, there's a endocrinologist, Henry Harrower. You'll like this guy, James. Henry Harrower, Harrower. He was considered the first endocrinologist in the States. And he experimented with thousands and thousands of people and thousands of pineal glands and brains and hearts and adrenals, and giving them to people and carefully measuring their blood work and what was happening to them after they took this stuff. And that's a real endocrinologist. He was seeing, oh, when I give pituitary, this thing happens in the ovary over there. Wow. If I give ovary, something happens to the thyroid. And I help the liver out, then the thyroid gets better. So he developed a chart of all the interconnections of all the endocrine system. And guess what has a direct connection? Liver and thyroid. And guess what's at the center of the endocrine puzzle? Which organ is at the center of the entire maze of endocrine organs in the body? Hormone producing organs.
Intestines?
Nope. Nope.
Pituitary, right?
Nope.
Intestines? Is that intestines?
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Adrenals.
Nope. I love this question. I never would have guessed myself.
How about the lungs?
Thyroid.
Oh.
The thyroid's got the connections to everything. Wow. So it's so important that I spend a lot of my time focusing on it. And it's because if I see liver problems, then I know the thyroid's being affected. Because your T4 to T3 conversion, T4 is the inactive form of thyroid hormone and T3 is the active. So to get that conversion, you need the liver being healthy. And you need enough selenium and B vitamins and magnesium and zinc. And there's a whole set, because iodine frequency stuff. So most of your molecules is, does anybody know the word AMU, AMU? It's molecule size. In the periodic table of the elements, they measure molecules by AMU, AMU. So hydrogen's tiny. And of all the food elements, iodine's the largest. It's like Jupiter compared to Earth in terms of size.
Wow.
Iodine's a giant molecule. So to get that into your cell, if your hole is this big and the iodine molecule is this big, I mean, the pun's kind of obvious here too. You need some help getting the big guy in the small hole, you know.
I'm distracted.
It's a great distraction. So there's something called the escalator or the Symporter system, Symport. The Symporter system is an escalator to get the iodine into the cell. And the Symporter system requires a certain amount of nutrients, of which you need B vitamins, you need selenium, you need magnesium, you need zinc, and you need whole food vitamin C. If you don't have enough of those in your diet, you won't get iodine into your cell. And then you'll take iodine and it won't get into the cell and it'll circulate around the body and you'll show low thyroid symptoms because your Symporter system isn't working.
And that's group 7A is the thyroid.
Yeah, hyper 7A, hypo. And if you want to back up what I'm saying, I got a lot of this data from David Brownstein, MD, who has a book about iodine. And he's done a lot of work. He's probably, I mean, Nicholas Gonzalez was doing good iodine work and Guy Benjamin was the other one. James, Guy Benjamin. Look at this guy's work. Guy Benjamin. He was out of UC Berkeley, I believe. And he was the main person for iodine loading. And he was always calling bullshit on the Wolff-Chaikov rat iodine study that demonized iodine. There was like 12 rats in the study, that's it. And they gave them ridiculous amounts of iodine. And that's when they stopped iodizing bread and they started brominating bread after that. They changed from iodized bread to brominated bread. And the Wolff-Chaikov study, Guy Benjamin, I think he's dead now. They wiped him out too. But I loved it because he published refutes against this iodine bullshit.
Wolf who?
Chaikov, I don't know how you spell Chaikov. The Wolff-Chaikov study, W-O-L-F-F, and I don't know how you spell Chaikov though, but you can contact me later, James, and I'll find you that. I've got it.
Yeah, and after that, they started taking the iodine out of all medicines too.
That's right.
And the only one they managed to keep it in was Vicks Vapor Rub.
Really?
They
No.
kept it in Vicks Vapor Rub, but they came to a deal with the government or the big
What?
pharma and said, well, we'll keep it in, but we won't write it on the bottle. And they said, that's okay. So Vicks Vapor Rub's really good for, if you've got like mold growing under your toenails,
Yeah,
if you rub that on, the iodine stops it growing.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's still that way? Vicks Vapor Rub
I think
still?
so, yeah.
I've heard it for that.
Wow, that's astounding. That's, wow.
And if you go into any sort of
Yeah.
Mexican house, they've got, there's Vicks Vapor Rub everywhere. That's one of their main medicines.
All right. So,
Can you not buy iodine anymore?
Yeah, you can buy iodine, but
Buy it from Craig.
yeah, I make,
yeah.
well,
He makes it.
I don't know if I should say this publicly. Oh, but I do make my own Lugol's iodine. Big brother, don't kill me. And it's not that hard to make. You just need to find a way to get elemental iodine because no one sells it. And the last time I bought elemental iodine, I had to buy it on eBay as a car steering cover thing from Bulgaria. This guy was willing to sell it to me in a car steering wheel case.
Oh, God.
Isn't that elemental?
Elemental iodine is incredibly reactive. By the time it got to me, it took about 2 weeks to go through customs. It was in 6 layers of plastic, and the iodine had gassed through 6 layers of plastic. It's completely orange. This is thick plastic.
Don't they sell atomidine from Edgar Casey and all this elemental iodine is.
Well, here's the problem with just elemental is certain organs in the body need potassium iodide and other organs need elemental iodine. And that's not talked about a lot. So Dr. Lugol in 1840 something developed Lugol's iodine. It was 2 parts potassium iodide, 1 part elemental iodine. And it has been used since 1840 for all hyper and hypothyroid conditions until the brainwashing came along in the 1970s.
What's the difference between potassium iodine and potassium iodide?
That doesn't exist. Potassium iodide is the correct chemical name of that. There's no such thing as potassium iodine. Iodine means isolated element. Iodide means there's something bound to it. That's just chemistry lingo, it's not that important for our purposes here. So the reason why I'm spending some time on this is because iodine has the highest correlation with IQ than any other nutrient.
Ah.
Highest correlation with intelligence is iodine. And mothers who are iodine deficient, guess what? Give birth to dumber babies.
Low IQ, yeah.
Dumber babies. That's right. This is why the natives would travel sometimes thousands of miles on foot to go to the ocean if they lived inland to trade for seaweed. It's well documented in Weston Price's work. And if you study anything, it has to be before 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, because, the world has kind of been taken over by the white man. But, well, we'll just say imperialistic, taken over. Maybe not just all white, but, brown, yellow, golden, all the colors probably have bad people too. So iodine, now, what's really interesting to make an argument for the dumbing down conspiracy theory is that, so they took iodine out of our lives, they made up fake studies about it, and then what are they putting in our water that competes with iodine in our body?
Fluoride.
And chlorine.
So they discovered in the 20s that there's just a bunch of retardation and stuff in the United States, particularly in the middle of the United States, because people weren't being given iodine.
Right. And that's why Morton came up with Morton iodized salt. But that form of iodine is a very unstable element. So guess what Morton had to do to keep the iodine from evaporating out of the salt?
What?
Ruin it.
No, they had to add dextrose.
Did that stabilize?
They have to add sugar to the frickin' salt to keep the iodine in solution. So in Morton iodized salt, there's actually sugar added to it, but not being on the label.
Of course,
Wow.
without it being on the label.
Just like the iodine not on the label for the Vicks Vapor Rub. And also, folks, I mean, there's just, you could go on, but
God.
be careful of the shampoos, the colognes and whatnot you're using, because you can have male and female hormones put in beauty products without your knowing.
Absolutely.
I see it all the time with raging young males. It's like, what kind of cologne is your son using? And I'm sure enough, EWF, I think is the website.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
EWF.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one you go to. And it tells you all the chemicals that are in this stuff. Great resource, EWF.com. Is
I
that it?
think so. To confirm that.
Yeah. So it says set a professional audio and audio setting. Uh-oh, it says recording.
So are they putting male stuff in male products?
They're putting testosterone in male products, yeah. Yeah. But I wanted to, it's kind of a digression. It's back to the iodine. So the reason why I'm spending time on this is because when you start a cleanse, especially like some people, you know, they want to take some iodine rich stuff and they want to get their thyroid healthier and they want to be smarter. And so I'm on 10 milligrams of iodine right now. Most people are getting 1/10 of a milligram of iodine a day, barely. That's the RDA. The optimal daily allowance that most natives and Japanese people that are healthy get about 10 milligrams of iodine a day. And most Americans are getting 100 times less than that. And the RDA is purposely set low because the RDA is the recommended daily allowance for minimum organ function.
So can you translate, if it was drops of Lugol's, how many drops would
Great.
10 milligrams be?
So generally the Lugol's is set up for 6 milligrams of iodine per drop.
Okay.
Generally, sometimes they're made half as strong. And so if you want to get 10 milligrams, it would be about 2 drops. The best time to take iodine is in apple cider vinegar before bed.
Oh.
Dr. I'm full of stuff tonight. Vermont folk medicine, Dr. DC Jarvis. There was a guy I told you the story about, the doctor that moved off to the Vermont and nobody really wanted to use him. So he learned from the town folk and humbled himself and wrote a book about it. So they would talk about these bratty, unruly children and you give them iodine and apple cider vinegar before bed and it calms them down. They used to call iodine a controlling element. It just kind of calms everything down. So that's when you take it, it helps you calm down.
So does it help with like
And the thyroid's getting its nutrition. However, if you don't have the other elements to do the importer system, then you'll take iodine and it'll keep circulating around your body and causing trouble.
So the other things that you talked about.
Now, iodine's a killer though, so it's not so bad to have iodine circulating around. You might feel tired, but like I got this Baker's cyst. I started taking iodine again, and this Baker's cyst has been gone for over a year. And this thing, and there's something that's gassing off right in there when I start taking the iodine. It's a general detoxicant. And there's something in my brain that's coming down and draining right there. And I mean, there's just some gnarly pus coming out of this thing. And I don't really have cysts, but I know that from my past, remember 10 allergy shots a week in each arm for 10 years equals 18,000 shots. I'll probably be gassing off poisons the rest of my life.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
From all the way from over there.
About yourself, or about him?
Both.
No, I have some processes that I would like to start again, and I think really help.
So now we've talked about chlorine a bit. So you can have, when you take a hot chlorinated shower, a 5-minute hot chlorinated shower gets you the equivalent amount of chlorine of drinking 8 glasses of tap water. So please put a chlorine filter in your shower. Yeah, please do
And
that.
that's as easy as a carbon filter.
Oh yeah,
Just carbon.
Yeah.
very simple.
How do you-
I use rain shower because they have easily, you know, but I mean, it's not rocket science. Then bromine, you know, you see bromine in all kinds of weird stuff in breads and beauty care stuff, and it's a good preserving agent. So I won't pick on bromine as much because it's not an area of my expertise, but fluorine is the last one I'm going to talk about today. So when you start taking iodine, you start gassing off these other elements. And guess who used fluorine during World War II?
IBM.
The Nazis did.
Yeah.
It's well known in psychiatry. You give sodium fluoride to someone, you make them calmer and susceptible to suggestion.
How about Rothschild's bastard son?
Wow.
They sure weren't concerned about their teeth.
That's right. So you don't think these Nazis that emigrated from World War II, they came over here and started planting ideas like, hey, put some fluoride in the water. We'll tell them it's all good for their teeth.
And the bread too has that.
That's right.
They made him docile.
And so you put Americans are the only country in the world where we allowed pharmaceutical commercials. So you put the fluoridated person in front of the TV set with frequencies all around them, and they're very susceptible to suggestion. And look what we see right now. We have a whole population that's open to suggestion. COVID!
Not
Yeah.
open to suggestion, they're zombies.
Well, they've been programmed. That's right. That's right.
Wow.
And it's in our water, folks.
Not in our water, no.
Not in our water, thank God. But
We fought like hell against that one 20 years ago.
Apparently, we gotta keep
Oh,
up
yeah,
the fight.
we came
didn't
down like-
Watsonville though? Didn't
Oh, yeah,
Watsonville sell out? I thought Watsonville sold
They
out.
voted for it, but then there was, that California didn't have funding for it, or somebody did, it was a funding issue.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Well, I heard the Martinelli's farm out there in Watsonville in the hills, they were kind of rebelling against it too. They had a big lobby against it as well.
Well, I was at the city council meeting and they said, if you guys do this, we are going to have to spend some ridiculous amount of money, like $175,000 on a system to take the fluoride out of the water.
Right.
So we are not liking this at all. We might even move our operation out of your county. So
Right.
it's that pretty much put them on notice that it was not a good idea.
Now,
I
Thanks,
stood there
Drew.
with a big sign with a big swastika. I said, and it said, the Nazi concentration camps used fluoride in their drinking water. Do you think they were concerned about the Jews' teeth?
yeah.
And the station police officer stand next to me.
Wow.
Mm,
Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't like the sign.
of course he didn't.
Wow.
Okay, I did promise I'd be done at 9, so I'm gonna, I've got a couple more. So just to button this up, then we'll go through the system survey again next week, but anybody that watches this recording, you're welcome to contact me. We can send you a form on the internet. You can fill it out online. It's fill outable. But everybody here at the dinner can bring the form back next week, and then we'll talk about people's results.
Yeah.
And
Oh, we'll fill it out. He wants to fill it out.
yeah, and the thing is about when I do a cleanse is I have a generic package for people, but then we customize. So I have my blood pressure cuff out right here. And if anybody wants to be a test subject, they can lay down on the couch or something in a minute. And so you lay down for 3 to 5 minutes. You literally lay down, put the blood pressure cuff on, and then you take your blood pressure after you've been laying down for 5 minutes. And you write that down. So we'll just say 120/80 with a pulse of 60. Okay, we'll write that. And then you have them stand up. And you immediately take it upon standing as fast as you can get it. And then you compare the two results. And if the systolic reading is lower than when you were laying down, you have adrenal fatigue. And the more it falls, the more the adrenal fatigue is. This is Dr. Ragland's test from the 70s. I don't know his first name.
Systolic's the lower number, right?
The higher number.
The higher number.
So the systolic is the pressure when the heart is beating. And the diastolic is when the heart is pumping blood from the lungs to the heart.
And if it goes down when you stand up, it's a problem?
It's a problem.
Okay.
So think about it.
So it's supposed to go up when you stand up.
You're lying horizontal and you've been relaxing for 5 minutes. So now the body's pumping blood horizontally to the brain. Requires not much work, right?
Right,
It's pumping blood horizontally. But then you suddenly jump up vertical.
right.
Now the body's going, uh-oh, adrenals kick in, please, because now I'm pumping blood uphill. We need to raise the pressure in the system to get it uphill. So if it can't do that, then adrenal fatigue. I've been using this test about 14 years. It's the single most important test I use. Because if you have no adrenal force, you have no vitality, and you want to cleanse, this is my metaphor, my favorite metaphor. When you're tired, do you want to clean up your room?
No.
Nope. When the body's tired, it doesn't want to detox. You don't force the body to detox when it's tired. So when someone's tired, like I'm borderline tired. I don't know if I should be doing a heavy cleanse. So what I did with a guy, a big business owner years ago, I've told this story before, is his blood pressure fell 30 points when he stood up. His whole family was there. He was, I call him a saint because he's helped so many people. But he had to humble himself in front of all his family. Like, oh, hey, look at that, Rod. You're falling blood pressure there. So I said, you know what your cleanse is? You got a sleep cleanse.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So the guy thought so much of my idea. And this guy's business was he maintained all the ATM machines in the Bay Area. That's his business. Talk about stressful.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
He bought a couch for his office was my point.
I remember you told the story a couple months ago.
Right. So he would lay down and have rest breaks. And this is right out of the breath pranayama book that Cindy got for us too, is if you don't take time to process your life in quiet, then your prana is never going to be whole because you're always processing something and you need time to digest what you just did. And that's the quiet time and the physiologic restore. You know the word recreation? Recreate. Recreate means recreate yourself. So my cleanses are based on that. Then if your vitality is low, it's a modified cleanse. If your vitality is high, then let's push you and send you into a deeper fast. And of course, it depends on desire too. So anybody's interested out there, we'll do some cleansing for you. And any questions after all that, a lot of digressions and iodines and any burning
Vitamin
questions?
D, so, there's.
These are being recorded, by the way. So
Oh, okay. So
if you wanna-
You talked about vitamin D and the standard test says, have a blood test that's between 3 and 1200. Do you know what yours is, or do you know what a good one is?
wait, which one?
Like the blood test for vitamin D is.
Oh, B12.
B12, sorry, is between 300 and 1200. And 300 is very low. 500 is what do you?
I don't use the test a whole lot.
Yeah.
When I see the test come in though, I know if it's high, we have a gut flora problem. I know when it's high, we have a gut flora problem.
Yeah.
Then I know if it's low, we also have a gut flora problem.
Got it.
Or they're not getting enough, they're not making intrinsic factor, or their stomach's messed up, or they're eating vegan. They're eating vegan and they don't. If they're eating vegan, some vegans have normal B12 and some vegans have low B12. So what's the difference in those two? What's the difference between the
How long
vegan?
they've been vegan.
Well, that's part of it, but there's another reason. Remember,
Oh,
your
probiotics.
your gut bugs poop out
Yeah.
B12.
Yes.
So a healthy vegan with a healthy flora downstairs will make their own B12.
Oh, wow.
Ideally. That great question. So it would be really interesting. The test that I want to see that I've been talking about is this iron test, the ferroxidase. And you don't see this measured much because that's your main, how your body manages iron and oxygen is the cause of all oxidative stress, obviously. It's how your body manages oxygen. So in that process of loading oxygen onto the red blood cell, guess what manages that? Copper, a copper containing protein. And guess what blocks copper? Synthetic D3, synthetic ascorbic acid, and zinc. The three
Synthetic
main,
zinc?
huh?
Synthetic zinc or real zinc?
Synthetic.
Well, when you take zinc in isolation, you're going to start chelating copper out of the body.
So once I didn't understand the answer.
So what you want to do if you're
Synthetic-
taking zinc, take some copper with the zinc, even if it's
Okay,
synthetic.
okay.
Even if it's a synthetic amino acid chelate, then you just take a little copper with it and you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you take D3, for God's sakes, get some sunlight too. And if you're taking ascorbic acid, for God's sakes, take whole food C. Because most of our ascorbic acid's made in China from GMO corn syrup. That's right, folks. Most of your ascorbic acid is made from sugar in China. So, and ascorbic acid is not vitamin C. It's a weak antioxidant protector of the rest of the C complex. And I don't have any problem with its use in short run stuff. It's vitamin D and zinc and ascorbic acid have been proven in acute COVID cases to work really well. So that's great, but don't use it for your lifetime or more than a few weeks. Great. More questions?
Oh, great.
Blood pressure.
You want to do a blood pressure? Okay, we're going to turn this off then. So folks, thank you for listening. Next week, we'll talk about the spring cleanse, and the spring cleanse starts March 20th. Anybody is welcome. If you want to be in the group and you don't want to even pay anything, that's fine too. You could be on the email group, and I don't care. I'm sending an email out anyway. So if you want to be part of a group cleanse and get the support, then please contact me. Bye, folks.